I'm a member of Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity and the Sam Adams Associates for Integrity and Intelligence. I myself was in the government for 27 years and have focused on peace work since my retirement. But I'm not really here to talk about me. I'm here to introduce our first speaker who will do the official welcome. And that is former Army Colonel and U.S. diplomat Ann Wright. As many of you know, Ann submitted her resignation letter on March 19th, 2003, the day before the United States launched its invasion of Iraq. Yay, Ann. And in her letter, she condemned the decision to invade Iraq without the blessing of the United Nations Security Council.
And we shouldn't have had the blessing of them anyway.
Exactly. And cited a lack of progress in the Israeli-Palestinian issue, in particular with the so-called Middle East peace process, and the lack of a policy in North Korea. That's the lack of any coherent policy on the part of our administration. And also, she objected to the curtailment of civil liberties in the United States. After a full career as a U.S. Army Colonel, Ann started life as a U.S. diplomat in 1987. She reopened the U.S. Embassy in Afghanistan after the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan closed it down. She was also a diplomatic representative in Sierra Leone, which she evacuated and then reopened. She was also representing us as a diplomat in Micronesia and Mongolia. She served at U.S. embassies in many other countries as well. So, and one last thing is she was the third out of 3 State Department officials to resign their positions prior to the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003. So give it up for Ann Wright.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth, and you may wonder why we kind of gave that introduction. It's because what we are here tonight is to talk about people who have taken acts of courage of leaving the government on issues of principle and things like that. And that's, the reason that we're here, particularly if you look right up here, this is the Sam Adams Award for Integrity and Intelligence. And to give you a little background of why we do this annual presentation, Sam Adams, back during the war on Vietnam, was one of the CIA analysts who kept telling the CIA and actually the whole U.S. government that they were fudging the books. They were fudging the numbers on what the strength was of the North Vietnamese and South Vietnamese against the U.S. military. And the various administrations, particularly the Johnson administration, didn't want to hear it. They just wanted to keep piling more U.S. military in. In fact, there was a request for 270,000 more U.S. military to go in. And Sam Adams was one of the ones that was saying, no, what are you doing? I mean, the numbers of the opposition is huge, and you're not recognizing that, and you're throwing all these kids in for cannon fodder. Well, so he spoke up, he got fired, and we have this because of another CIA person, Ray McGovern, which I'm sure many of you all know. He was a long-time CIA person, a briefer of the president's, and about 20 years ago, he said, we need to recognize people of courage that are standing up and saying to our government the things they don't want to hear. So that's why we have this name now for Sam Adams. And tonight we're going to be honoring a person of great courage who gave his life to tell the U.S. government that the complicity that the U.S. has in the genocide of Gaza is something that he would not put up with. And Aaron Bushnell took his own life so that we as citizens here and really around the world were mesmerized by someone who would give up their life for the Palestinians. And we have some signs here. I will no longer be complicit in the genocide. We have never again, means no wars of aggression for sure. In front of the in front of the Israeli embassy on February 25th of this year, Aaron, as you've probably seen in the videos that he actually took himself. My name is Aaron Bushnell. I'm an active duty member of the U.S. Air Force. I will no longer be complicit in genocide. I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest, but compared to what people have been experiencing in Palestine at the hands of their colonizers, it's not extreme at all. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal. And then free Palestine. Earlier in the day, Aaron had written on his Facebook page, many of us like to ask ourselves, what would I do if I was alive during slavery, or the Jim Crow South, or apartheid? What would I do if my country was committing genocide? And the answer is, you're doing it right now. So that is why we are here to give the 2024 award, the Sam Adams Award, to Aaron Bushnell. But before we actually do this presentation, we want to recognize some of the people that we have given this award to in the past for their acts of courage. I think the very first person we ever gave it to was a CIA person, FBI person, who challenged the government on the whole issue of 9/11, and that's Colleen Rowley right here. Colleen, and she just didn't do it in a small way. How many pages was that letter you wrote to the director of the FBI? 12, 13. So she let them have it with both barrels. And so she was the first recipient in 2002 of the Sam Adams Award. And some of the other people that you may recognize their names and what they've done. Frank Murray, who's from the UK, former UK ambassador to Uzbekistan, that broke the news that the Uzbeks were torturing people, and the UK government didn't want to hear that. We have Larry Wilkerson, Colonel Larry Wilkerson, who was the assistant to Colin Powell, both when he was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and also as Secretary of State. And you say, well, why would he was part of it, and he readily admits he was part of the war on Iraq, but he also, after he left office, has been one of our most prolific writers and speakers about the need to challenge the U.S. government on its wars. And he apologizes for his complicity in what happened with the Iraq War. We have Julian Assange. Julian Assange. We gave that award to him in 2010 in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. We've traveled with this award kind of all over the world. We have given it to Thomas Drake, who was an NSA employee who challenged the government on various issues. Yep. We have Jesselyn Radak, a lawyer who's been a great whistleblower too for the Department of Justice, on the Department of Justice. We have Edward Snowden. Yeah. Edward Snowden. He's still in Moscow. And we hope someday, if he wants to come back to the United States, he can. We have Chelsea Manning, who was awarded. We have John Kiriakou, a CIA person who, even after the CIA's complicity in torture was revealed, he spoke about it in a public forum, and he was put in jail for what? 3 years. 3 years for supposedly outing the CIA when it was always public knowledge on torture. We have Seymour Hersh, the author who let us know about My Lai back during the Vietnam era. We have Karen Karatowski, who's a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Air Force, who during the Iraq War told the Pentagon they didn't know what they were doing. We have Jeffrey Sterling, who was CIA also. We have Daniel Hale, who is finally out of jail, and he was a whistleblower on what assassin drones were doing. So, and then in 2022, we gave the award to one of the biggest, best whistleblowers in the world, Daniel Ellsberg. We gave it to him right before he passed away. And Daniel, who was part of the telling us what was going on in Vietnam and also whistleblowing on a lot of nuclear issues. So these are people that we've already given the award to. And tonight, while we are giving this award in memory of Aaron Bushnell for what he has done, we also want to recognize that this year we have a lot of other people that have been with the federal government that have taken acts of courage, who have resigned from the government on principle. And I will read their names. We've invited them all here, but many of them are on speakers. You know, they're speaking all over the country about the complicity of the U.S. genocide in the U.S. complicity of the Israeli genocide in Gaza, and now the West Bank and in Lebanon. But just to recognize who they are, seven persons have resigned from the State Department and USAID. Josh Paul, Andrew Miller, Anel Sheline, Paula Harat, Stacy Gilbert, Mike Casey, Alex Smith. We have one from the Department of Education, Tariq Habash. We have two from the Department of Interior, both political appointees that came in with the Biden administration, Lily Greenberg Hall and Memoriam Hassani. We have one from the White House Office of Management and Budget, and she hasn't gotten a lot of publicity on this, but I want to make sure her name is out there, Ana Del Castillo. And then we have three from the military who have resigned from the military, and we have many others who are trying to become conscientious objectors to get out of the military. But the three military that have formally resigned, Major Harrison Mann, Senior Airman Mohammed Abu Hassan, and Major Riley Livermore. So let's give a big hand for all of them. Tonight we're in a place that we have, this room has held so many wonderful events for us as the public. And I just want to acknowledge that Andy Shalal, who is the owner of First is always so amenable to us as the activist community to have facilities that are so warm and welcoming to us. So Andy, again, we want to thank you so much. We're going to have several speakers tonight. It's not going to go on forever, but we do want to have the opportunity to have people give their views on some very important issues that we have going on tonight. We have the Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. How about that? Veterans Professionals for Intelligence for Sanity. Those of you all who are a member of that group, if you'll stand up. These are folks who have come from the intelligence community of our government and are saying no to what the government is doing. We have the Eisenhower Media Network, which is a new group that has been formed to provide a greater platform for people who are challenging the government. Everyone that's a member of that, please stand up and raise your hand. Well, our first speaker that we would like to invite to come up is Josie Giglio. Josie is a mother of three little tykes, and the fourth one is much much taller. She's from Ohio. She's been a part of the U.S. military and resigned actually from the military, and then started working as a contractor with NSA. She's done so much work on cyber sorts of things, and she will explain why she became part of our group, which is challenging what's going on with the genocide of Gaza, and why Aaron Bushnell and what he did was so important to her. Please, Josie.
All right. First of all, it's so good to be here. Sorry, I'm also a little sick, but I couldn't miss it. You know, being around you guys really does fill my soul because of the fight that I know we're all in together. So it just means a lot to be here amongst all you and a bunch of just really loving human beings that I just trust. And Aaron Bushnell, for me, and the own impacts that I've had are tremendous, really. I showed up here driving from Ohio because Code Pink had posted Congress Days back in February. And so I just felt like I couldn't take it anymore, what I had been witnessing for months. And so when I saw Code Pink offering for all kinds of people to come into Congress and lobby, I just needed to hop on that opportunity. And so I did, and I got to meet, these wonderful people who taught me a lot about what is actually happening inside the Capitol. And it was really a part of my awakening journey. And then shortly after that is when Aaron Bushnell self-immolated, because he in his own soul just really couldn't take the pain of what we are all experiencing here right now. And the impact that has had on my life has been so great. It literally took me from Code Pink putting me into first gear, and then Aaron putting me into fifth gear, to really hit the ground running, to say, because I felt like he felt inside, and while I wasn't gonna choose that level of sacrifice, I knew that I had to choose a deeper sacrifice. That was the impact that he had shown me. And before I came here today, I asked a few groups of people that I'm in, what was the impact of Aaron on you? Because I know that I'm just one person, but his impact has been so powerful, just really across, the world. There's not a whole lot of households in our world who actually don't know, who he is, and of course who the Palestinians are. So I asked a few people, and I just want to read some of the things that I received from some of the people in the groups that I'm a part of, and how impactful he's been. Someone said he urged people, especially Americans, to stop being silent about their roles in crimes against humanity, particularly the ongoing situation in Palestine. His exposure of the broader implications of American imperialism highlighted its impacts on the Middle East and the global war in terror. And to just elaborate a little bit more on that, of course what he was screaming was free Palestine, but the reality is what he has awoken us, many of us to, was this extended beyond Palestine, and this extended into the Iraqi war and into the war in Afghanistan. So that message, it just was unfolding so many other realities that we as Americans truly didn't quite understand yet. So he pretty much was another ripple, ripping the mask off here. He revealed the dehumanizing tendency in American culture to label Middle Eastern individuals as terrorists, a term often misused by governments to discredit and silence dissent. He pushed people to confront the ingrained biases that make such dehumanization possible, which has serious consequences both domestically and abroad. His own turmoil and desperation over U.S. involvement in atrocities in the Middle East made people think about his humanity and suffering. His tragic self-immolation served as a wake-up call, especially for Americans and veterans, to understand the pain of oppressed populations and the cries for help that have long gone unheard. He inspired many veterans to face the moral struggles they experience due to their participation or complicity in wars that many feel were driven by exploitation and dehumanization. And this really ties into the average amount of veterans that are unalive today because of their own internal struggles with what they were used to do in all of these wars. So he's even revealing the level of suffering that we as veterans often have after we return home from these unproductive wars. He's shown a light on how veteran suicides often stem from guilt, shame, and trauma associated with inhumane wars, where soldiers were encouraged to view people as less than human under the guise of terrorism. His message underscored how veterans are frequently left feeling used, seeing themselves as pawns in the exploitation of others by powerful elites. His sacrifice is seen as part of a global awakening as people worldwide, including America, begin to hold the U.S. accountable for its destructive actions. He contributed significantly to a paradigm shift where people are realizing the need to act decisively to stop ongoing atrocities like the situation in Palestine, and to work towards change within their communities and society at large. His actions were not in vain. They provided a rallying point for others to seek meaningful change and resist further participation in oppressive structures. Many hope that he would be proud of the awareness and the efforts his actions have inspired to stop the continuation of these injustices. So these are just a few impacts, but honestly, I think we could probably sit here all night and go on about the wave that he has caused, not only in America, not only amongst veterans, not only amongst the active duty military, but just amongst the world, in bringing us together to realize our collective suffering. So today, I honor Aaron Bushnell for what he has done in my life, and more importantly, what he has done for my 4 children. So cheers to Aaron.
Thank you so much, Josie, for those impactful words. I'm sure they'll stay with us for a long time. Our next speaker is Dennis Fritz, Director and Senior Fellow of the Eisenhower Media Network. He was Command Chief Master Sergeant of the U.S. Air Force, now retired, and served as Principal Senior Advisor to 4-star commanders at 2 major commands, the Pacific Air Forces and the Space Command.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Dennis Fritz.
Well, thank you, everybody. I used to wonder why the more mature people used to have glasses to read through, and now I understand. Let me just first say I'm so honored to be here, and I'm really quite happy about the turnout. For all the hard work, Elena and Ann, y'all done, really appreciate it. It gives me an opportunity to see my colleagues, new colleagues, reacquaint myself with others. Andy, as Ann alluded to, he's always been supportive of us. In fact, he was very personally supportive to me by hosting the launch of my book back in June, so I really appreciate that, Andy, and good seeing you again. I'm here for 2 primary reasons. One, as a sponsor of this, the Eisenhower Media Network. I thought it was right for me to be here. But most importantly, I'm here to honor Aaron Bushnell. Aaron was in the Air Force. I spent 28 years of my life in the Air Force. My job as a senior enlisted leader for over 10 years was to keep an eye on the morale and welfare of our enlisted troops. It was only fitting for me to be here for Aaron. Some have said Aaron committed suicide. I see it differently. I see him as a person that on the battlefield, as one military member would jump on a grenade to save the lives of his fellow comrades, I see Aaron as giving his life for the people of Palestine and to shed light on the genocide that is happening and taking place and being conducted by Israel and unfortunately the complicity of the United States, which he could not be a part of. He knew what he was doing. There's no doubt in my mind. He knew what he was doing. He was brave and courageous. Not like our cowardly Congress and the current administration who could do something about this genocide. They refused to do so. They don't have to make the sacrifice that Aaron made. All they have to do is just stop the providing of the weapons, the funding, and the political and diplomatic cover. That's all they have to do. Aaron gave his life. That's all they have to do. But guess what? They're only worried about their positions and being in power, being a member of Congress, and being part of administration. That's all they care about. Now I want you to think about this for a moment. If they don't care about the innocent women and children and men that are being killed over in Gaza and now Lebanon, think how they value you and me. You see, I know how they value me. I remember when Bibi came and addressed our Congress. An international criminal addressed our Congress. And out there were many folks protesting his visit. And he had the nerve to say, those folks out there protesting are useful idiots of Iran. Well, guess what? There are outstanding veterans out there, like Ann Wright, like Josie, Larry Wilkerson, and I guess I can include myself in that group. We were out there protesting. They spat in our faces, and that tells me what our Congress and this administration think of us. We were willing to give our lives on the battlefield as Aaron did, but that's how they felt about us. But you know, I got news for our Congress and this current administration. They're useful idiots of Bibi Netanyahu. Aaron didn't die in vain. He died as a hero. He gave his life and supported the Palestinian people, and he died for the sins of our United States of America. And so I'm going to end with these two words, the last two words we heard from Aaron, and that is Free Palestine.
Thank you so much for that, Dennis Fritz. Our next speaker really needs no introduction, but Scott Ritter is a military and geopolitical analyst, best known as a former UN weapons inspector for UNSCOM between 1991 and 1998. He's a former U.S. Marine Corps intelligence officer, author, lecturer, and journalist, and many of us follow his interviews and talks on Twitter religiously. Scott, come up here, please.
thank you very much. It's an honor and a privilege to be here today to finally attend the Sam Adams award ceremony. I live in New York. Sometimes it's difficult to make the trip down, but I made sure I came today. Napoleon Bonaparte once said that a soldier will fight long and hard for a colorful piece of ribbon. And if you're in the military, you know what the hell he's talking about. Because we've all looked at the colorful salad on people's chests. It's how we measure careers. We look at people and we can tell where they've been, what they've done. But there's certain awards that stand out. The awards of heroism. The awards that we give those who go above and beyond the call of duty. But over the years, these awards have become cheapened. End of tour awards, or the package. You know what I'm talking about. You guys and gals have been there and done that. The package. You know, you go, you do your tour, and you come out, and you get the medal. The medal they give everybody who completed a successful tour. And it cheapens the award tremendously. But we also know the people that didn't get the package, but the people that wear the ribbon nonetheless. The quiet professionals. The ones who didn't want it. Really aren't sure they want it on their chest now, but it was given to them so they wear it. And when you talk to them and you say, why did you do it? It's not because they wanted to be heroes. It's not because they said, I wanted that colorful piece of ribbon. They said it's because of the man on my left and the man on my right. Because of my comrades. My comrades were in trouble, and I had to help them. So I went out and I did something I normally wouldn't do. And they rewarded me. And when you sit down and you talk to these people, you realize the struggle that they face about this action, because oftentimes they didn't succeed in saving the lives of those who they went out to save, and yet they got awarded it nonetheless. A colorful piece of ribbon. Now imagine if you're a young airman and you wake up one morning and you decide that you have to take an action. But you're not in a combat zone. You're not deployed. There's no fellow airmen to your left and your right. Instead, you have the sound of a young 5-year-old girl, Memoriam. And you heard her voice as she cried for help. Stuck in a car surrounded by the dead bodies of her relatives, killed mercilessly by Israeli machine gun fire. Help me, she said, help me, come to me. Help me, I'm scared. They said, don't worry, we're coming to get you. And they sent 2 paramedics to get her. And they got within 50 meters. They cleared the route with the Israelis. The Israelis waited until they arrived, got out, headed to the vehicle, then they killed them. Yeah, Aaron Bushnell knew the name of Memoriam. She died in January 29th. He knew her name. There's some that he didn't know their names. Like the mother that walked her son across the street, said, son, hold this white flag. They won't shoot you. They won't shoot you. Bam! And they killed her. And the son stared over his mother's body and bam! They killed him again. We don't know their names, but we know they're dead. Aaron Bushnell knew they were dead. And Aaron Bushnell knew that he had to do something. Not for a comrade in arms, but for the innocents that were being slaughtered overseas in our name, in his name. So Aaron Bushnell decided that he was going to get up and take a walk that none of us can imagine what that walk was like. Because there was no coming back from this walk. You weren't running out under fire to save your friends. You were stepping forward to make a statement, but a statement you didn't know was going to be heard. There was no way Aaron Bushnell knew that his actions would be appreciated. And yet he stood there bravely, covered himself with flammable liquid, and set himself on fire. And his last words were, free Palestine. Aaron Bushnell, brother, we got your back. We're not going to let you down. We weren't there for you when you made the ultimate sacrifice, but we're there for you now. We're with you, brother. We're going to complete your mission, free Palestine.
Amen, Scott Ritter. Thank you so much. We will now read the citation for the Sam Adams Award. It will be read by Todd Dix. I'm sorry, what's your last name again, Todd? Todd Pierce, a former judge, advocate general, and member of Sam Adams. I'm just so moved by Scott's speech. Former judge, advocate general, and member of Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity and the Sam Adams Associates as well.
Defense attorney for Guantanamo.
And defense attorney for Guantanamo, probably the most important thing about.
We'll be presenting this citation to Aaron's friend, who I guess is not here yet, but
He's here.
he'll be accepting it on behalf of Aaron. But I think what we just heard from Josie, Scott, Dennis, this is why we're giving this award to Aaron, not because what he did in front of the embassy itself, but for how he inspired people and how he really brought it out to the world. That we have to begin paying attention to this genocide that's taking place right in front of our eyes. And the three speakers before me, they said it better than anyone else could have said it. So let me read this citation. Award citation for Aaron Bushnell. Know all ye by these presents that Aaron Bushnell is hereby awarded the Corner Brightener Candlestick, presented by Sam Adams Associates for Integrity and Intelligence on this second day of November 2024 in Washington, D.C. Senior Airman Bushnell became a martyr when he walked up to the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. on February 25th, 2024, while live streaming himself as he approached. He then self-immolated in the most extreme form of protest against what Israel is doing to Palestinians. He was 25 years old and had been on active duty since May 2020, according to the service. He had stated, as he approached the embassy, "My name is Aaron Bushnell, and I am an active duty member of the United States Air Force. I will no longer be complicit in genocide. I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest, but compared to what people have been experiencing in Palestine at the hands of their colonizer, it's not extreme at all. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal." That's Aaron Bushnell's final message. In an earlier online post, later identified as from Senior Airman Bushnell, he had written, "I have been complicit in the violent domination of the world, and I will never get the blood off my hands." In advance of this act, Aaron Bushnell posted this message on his Facebook page. Many of us like to ask ourselves, what would I do if I was alive during slavery, or the Jim Crow South, or apartheid? What would I do if my country was committing genocide? Many of us like, it is to be deplored that such despair overwhelms a person of conscience as Aaron was. But it must be seen as he being an additional victim of the violent domination of the world, now in the form of an ongoing genocide by Israel, with bipartisan U.S. complicity. Senior Airman Bushnell is a 21st awardee of the Sam Adams Award for Integrity and Intelligence. His distinguished colleagues include Daniel Ellsberg, Julian Assange, and Craig Murray, who have all paid heavy prices for truth-telling. But Senior Airman Aaron Bushnell paid the highest price, a price we wish no one to pay. But in endless U.S. wars for the purpose of the violent domination of the world, it is inevitable that service members of conscience will feel the righteous despair that Aaron Bushnell wrote of. I will never get the blood off my hands. Aaron didn't commit suicide, he was murdered by those directing the violent domination of the world, for which he took the most extreme measure to avoid complicity for and in protest against. I gotta make one last word. Dennis pointed out the current administration, and a lot of us are fixated on the current administration's role in aiding and abetting this genocide. But let's not forget that there is an election going on, and their opponent of this current administration is totally, if you pay attention, inciting the commission of genocide. That's a war crime equal to genocide itself. when you're sitting out there calling for Israel to finish the job, that's complicity in the incitement of genocide, or the incitement of genocide. So let's not lose perspective on what's going on here this year. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes.
There are seats over here. If you people back there want to come sit, there are the 3 seats here. And here.
Levi, your pond? Levi, come on up.
They're coming.
Oh. Do it after the bio. Okay. Levi.
Where are you?
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
All
All
right,
right,
he's on the way.
Levi's coming up, great. Okay, so we are honored to have someone who actually personally knew Levi Pierpont in basic Air Force training. And he's going to accept the award. Levi Bushnell and Levi Pierpont met in May 2020 at Goodfellow Air Force Base at the beginning of Air Force basic training. They spoke and texted often, even after basic training ended, and they pursued different divisions of Air Force Tech School. Bushnell for cybersecurity and Pierpont for operations intelligence. Levi later started to ask the questions that would ultimately lead him to seek discharge as a conscientious objector. The last time they saw one another was in January 2024 in Toledo, Ohio, after Bushnell moved to Akron for SkillBridge, a transition program for members about to separate. They talked about Pierpont's CO discharge, which had been approved in July 2023. Levi has spoken and written many times to help the public understand why Aaron's actions were so important to us all. Levi recently returned from a Palestine solidarity trip to the West Bank, his first trip to the Middle East, actually where he went to the street named after Aaron Bushnell. And we now have lit the corner brightener that we hope will lead to more people of conscience like Aaron Bushnell, like Levi, who's going to accept, and I can hold this because you're going to talk here. And we also, again, want to have a moment of silence right now for Aaron Bushnell. And I'm just going to add, I know Levi is a Quaker and a Buddhist and some other religions. And I want to say we want to pray in this moment of silence for more people of conscience in this country. So we present the citation and award to Levi Pierpont and thank him so much for being a friend to Aaron Bushnell.
It's hard sometimes to see pictures like this and other pictures like that. And it's hard to hear his last name. As soon as we got out of basic training, I never used his last name again. And when he died, he immediately became an icon in a way that I understood, and I understood why that meant something to people, but that wasn't what he was for me, and that's never what he'll be for me. And so I've used his last name so few times in the last year, and I always just make sure that when I say Aaron, my friends know who I'm talking about. I think a lot about our strategies. I think a lot about the effectiveness of different protest strategies, and I think about why somebody would decide to die in this way. I think often about the networks of organizations that work across the country, across the world. I was talking to a dear friend at home who's involved in labor organizing as well as Palestine organizing, and I told him, I said, I'm just glad that everybody's just doing what they can, and as long as we all just keep doing what we can in our little corners of the world, then maybe that'll do something, right? And Jared's a very sweet person, but he immediately just said, I don't think so. He said, and I texted him so that he would send me this in his exact words. He said, the forces we are up against are too massive for us to defeat or even survive unless we work collectively. Somehow we need to build the unity, vision, and will to fight that can sustain a long-haul, protracted struggle against the American empire. That takes engaging with the people around you, the not fascist ones at least, in real and sustained ways, and holding each other accountable to a political vision of a world in which Palestine is free. And he shared a quote by Kalia Kuno, which says we must abandon our deficit-based perspective of scale and pivot to a perspective of bounty, one that appreciates the value of a multitude of autonomous organizing projects engaged in meeting people's material and social needs and stimulating their productive capacities. We do not need uniformity in the practices and structures that enable our material and social life. Rather, we need their coordination along democratic lines of equity and equality. In other words, it is not enough to have people across this country who care about Palestine. The majority of Americans care about Palestine enough that they would like the bombs to stop at least by now. And it hasn't stopped it yet. We often talk about Aaron's death in the language of sacrifice. Aaron grew up in a cult, and it was very hard for him to work in groups of people. It was very hard for him to relate to groups of people. And he did some organizing in Texas, but there were organizations that he dropped out of, that he said, it's too difficult for me to be in a space like this. It's triggering things growing up. I can't do this. And I think that definitely went into his decision. He felt, how am I supposed to help organize the end to this genocide? And he said, I just have to end it myself and try to do something that I can in my own individual sense. I think we cannot see his death as the ultimate sacrifice, though. Because his death took moments. His death took a day. And he sacrificed his life for something that he believed in. But how much more difficult is it to wake up every day and sacrifice every day of your life for something that you believe in? And that's more difficult because you have to keep yourself involved. You have to keep yourself from burning out. You also have to put up with other people. And so I want to ask you all, think seriously about the sacrifices that you're making. And please don't think that they are that different from the sacrifice that Aaron made. He made a hard sacrifice in a moment. And many of us are making hard sacrifices every day for years. I want you to understand the weight that comes with that. Give yourself the grace that you need to that comes with that. And understand that our fight is not against the Israel lobby or against whatever. The fight is against the American empire. And against capitalism. So, thank you for all being here. To appreciate what Aaron did and to honor what he did in this way. And for what it's worth, Aaron would be so inspired by so many of you. And I wish things were under different circumstances.
Well, thank you very, very much, Levi, for that moving tribute to your dear friend Aaron. And you've given us a perspective on him over the period since February 25th, with the various times that you've offered your comments on television and writing and things like that. So I think we all feel we know Aaron a little bit from what you've been able to give to us. And I know he gave his life for Palestinians. And I don't know, Hazami, are you here? We've asked this, Hazami might have been here. Hazami represents the Palestinian community, I think, here in Washington, D.C., so much because she, and how many of you all have been to either Kibbutz Lincoln or Kibbutz Embassy? Stand up, because you all, as a part of that group, have been so important in making sure that Secretary of State Tony Blinken knows that we are apoplectic about what his role is and what's going on. He is a part of the author of genocide on behalf of the United States government, the complicity of it all. We thank you for being at the Israeli embassy to make sure the Israeli government knows here. If there are any Palestinians here that would like to come forward to make a comment from the perspective of a Palestinian and how this may have affected you, we certainly want to offer you that opportunity. And would anyone from any other part of our community like to say anything for all the work that you've been doing at the embassies, at Blinken, in the Congress, as we as we continue to put pressure on the Biden-Harris administration to stop the weapons transfers to Israel and to stop our complicity in that genocide. Would anyone else like to make a comment? Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy.
You're welcome to come on up here, Azita.
Please.
Come on up and use the microphone.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm not a speaker, but I want to just thanks everyone for the effort we did, struggle against the genocide. I want to tell you the effect that Aaron Bushnell did on me, actually. I remember when this happened and exposed to the viral in the media, social media. The next day, lots of us, I see the faces, we were next to the Israeli embassy. And I saw the gray ashes, the sign over there. It was so painful to see someone 25 years old give their life on that situation for the Palestinian people. Then from that moment, I decided to join and do something, because he did so much, so we can do better to helping him to achieve the things they say, free Palestine. And I'm sure we're gonna get there. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Azita. Would anyone else please come forward?
Not much for public speakers, so cut me some slack there. All right, so my name is Miguel Cadre, I'm a Marine Corps veteran. And something I want to say about seeing the video of Aaron Bushnell set himself on fire. I had only known bits and pieces of what the Israeli-Palestinian conflict was. You know, growing up between Miami and Chicago, years of propaganda shoved down my throat. Unparting myself from leaning too far to one side and looking at the humanity of the situation that Aaron Bushnell's death opened my eyes to. And just seeing, as just a service member, let alone a human being, our leaders said nothing.
Yeah.
Army, Marine Corps, all the commandants, all the high-ranking generals said nothing. But here was a kid, 25 years old, maybe a couple years younger than my younger brother. What does that say to you? When our leaders try to shove a narrative down the throat, pretend the kid did not set himself on fire, then after that, other people setting themselves on fire. Think of what that takes. Aaron Bushnell choosing to wake up one day and saying, I'm going to give up my life for the thousands of women, children, and men being murdered in mass. Not 1,000, not 2,000, not 3,000, 100,000 under the rubble. What does that make you think and feel as a human being? And so, hearing Aaron Bushnell say, free Palestine, said something like me, and I'm sorry to shake it because it makes me think of certain way. It feels certain way. Hearing Aaron Bushnell, watching him give his life, makes me want to go after AIPACs, makes me want to go after the representatives and the US leaders who politically know that they hear our voice. 60% of Democrats, a growing majority of people who have uncoupled themselves from being one party or the other. And here we are. Look at all of us collectively from every race, religion, belief, creed. And this is what we need to grow. And the name of Aaron Bushnell and other people have given their life for this. Thank you. Free Palestine.
Thank you very much. Kathy, please.
Hi, I'm Kathy Boylan with the Catholic Worker. and I'm very, very serious about this. Our tax money make us all, for paying federal taxes, we're complicit in the genocide. And so I carry around, you probably have seen me, U.S. taxes fund the genocide. This is an old banner, I've had this for a while. So please, please look up the National War Tax Resistance Coordinating Committee. And even if you just a small amount, whatever, a symbolic amount, refuse to give them any money. Our money is buying everything that we're remember Alexander Haig said, let them demonstrate all they want as long as they continue paying their taxes. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Sam. I think Sam Husseini, and then, okay, we've got.
I just want Kathy to know I didn't pay my taxes this year because of you.
All right.
This has been such a wonderful evening. It's weird to say wonderful. And people have spoken to the moral aspect of it, which I think is the most important. But I've had a fascination with self-immolation for many years because I viewed it, as, from my Christian background, as this incredibly self-sacrificing act. Father Daniel Berrigan likened it to, that people don't understand what's happening with that, and that they have lost, Christianity has lost something, in that it doesn't understand that, contemporary mass Christianity. But I also want to pay homage to this, in most self-immolators in the United States. The Arab uprising started with a self-immolator, and then there were several other self-immolators in other Arabic countries trying to literally not sacrifice themselves, but to give their lives. So that not out of the typical despair of a veteran that we see, that's tragic, but to go out in a way that helpfully helps those around you, those whom you love. And in the United States, they've all gotten ignored. There were some in Vietnam, but there were several against the Iraq wars, and they got totally ignored. There have been several in the last year. There was one in Atlanta. She's still alive. I tried to get her name, Jane Doe, in Atlanta, in front of the Israeli consulate. Matthew, in front of the Israeli consulate in Boston. This strategy, and I don't know, maybe it's because he's a military guy or something, he live streamed it. He planned it out. And there's a brilliance to that at a strategic level. That not only is it an ethical act, it's combined the moral force with the strategic insight of how to reach people. And that is a totally other dimension to it. Thank you.
Okay, please, Micah, please come up. Good to see you.
Hi, my name is Haifa, and I am a Palestinian. And Medea, thank you for giving me the courage to come up here. I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. I never ever thought that I would see so many people who cared about Palestinians. So I just want to say, growing up as a Palestinian in the United States was so hard, and it's still hard, and it's so complicated for so many people. But going to Congress, being with Anne, my wonderful husband, has really made me see that people do care, and that we are people, we're not animals, we're not uncivilized, we are proud with dignity, and we are very generous people, and I see that in my culture, but I also see it in all of you. So I never thought that would ever happen. and I wish my parents were here to see this. They're from the West Bank, from Ramallah and Jerusalem. But wow, they would be so amazed. They'd be heartbroken, but so amazed at the people that have stepped forward and have really been heroes to me and to my family. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Haifa. Yes, would you like to come up? Yeah. And I'll just, while you're coming up, I'll just mention that, you know, for all of us to get to know more and more Palestinians as Palestinians are coming out as, particularly in the Congress and of course at all of the kibbutz and everything. I mean, we all know so much more about Palestine now and love Palestinians. Thank you. Please.
Okay, so I will be super quick, but I will kick this off with everyone's favorite Israeli operative, Ben Shapiro, who once said, "Facts don't care about your feelings." And as we are right now, less than a week out before elections, we know no matter what, it feels like the Israel lobby is going to win. But they're only going to win if we let them win. And yes, they have all the money behind them. They pretty much, as what we've seen from Netanyahu's speech, we're essentially now colonized by Israel. I was recently in Congress not too long ago for my day job, and I was wondering, why on earth are there so many Israeli flags in the US? At this point, I always thought, once I started coming awakened to the reality of Israel, that Israel was treated as the US's imperialistic outpost. And now I'm starting to wonder if it's the other way around at this point. But for any of you who are super, super emotional, as myself, once you start seeing the horrors coming out of Gaza, it changed my life forever. And I was a very little girl during the 2003 Iraq invasion. And once everything started coming out from Gaza, I had started to wonder, is the reason why there wasn't the same gut reaction of people taking to the streets in the wake of the Iraq invasion was because we didn't see it. Because back then, we didn't have Instagram, we didn't have TikTok, we didn't have social media, we didn't have people just on the ground pulling out their phones, video recording everything that's around them. So we were only fed certain narratives, and it's because of the brave people who have been behind the scenes, who were in the US government, who saw the atrocities, and were the conscientious objectors. Like, yes, the facts were the US was doing all these horrible things, but yet they had the feelings that drove them to justice. And so what I just want to remind people is, even so going forward past November, past the elections, no matter who wins at the end of the day, that does not mean our work does not stop until Palestine is free. Still be out there in the streets, still be out there calling your members of Congress, still being out there, whether it is you're serving in a government and you realize you can't do your job anymore because of this, don't be afraid. And if there's anything, we should be surrounding those people for, of course, having to quit your job as a government contractor where you're making tons and tons of money and wondering the fear of oh, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills if I quit my job. This is where we as a community have to surround the conscientious objectors, the people who are willing to quit their jobs, to quit their paychecks, quit their health insurance, and help them figure out how to put food on the table. So again, our action's not going to stop after November. This just means keep on going, because at the end of the day, it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse if we stay silent and we let our feelings just grow cold.
And we're going to, this is not the end of the opportunity to talk to each other by any means, but we are going to have, there's going to be food back in the back for you. You can order your own. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. We do have a buffet in the back for you all. Drinks are on your own and things like that. But before we have the final thing, Max Blumenthal, one of our great journalists, and who's just done a very important Atrocity Inc. has just come. Max, would you like to come and say something?
I just came to see all these nice people, wasn't planning on speaking. Randy, you made it. Thanks for bringing me up. I really wasn't preparing to speak. I got just pulled up here. Kind of a somber occasion, so maybe I'll start with a joke. It's this old Cold War joke. Maybe some of you know it. CIA agent, KGB agent, and Mossad agent go into the woods and have a contest to see who can catch the rabbit fastest. CIA agent comes out after a week and he's got a rabbit. And the KGB agent, Mossad agent say, "How'd you do it?" CIA agent said, "Oh, I just used my tracking skills, my subterfuge, clandestine, all the stuff Scott Ritter learned. And I tracked him down, and I got him." KGB agent goes into the woods, comes back in 3 days. They said, "How'd you get him?" I used trapping, I stalked him, camouflage. Then the Mossad agent goes in the woods, comes out in 1 hour with a deer. Wow. And he's punching the deer going, "Say you're the rabbit, say you're the rabbit, say you're the rabbit." Thought some of you all would know that. I really don't have much to say except, all the respect in the world for everyone who resigned over this genocide, which is continuing, which will continue regardless of who gets elected. Unfortunately, more people didn't have the courage of their convictions, and we couldn't get a critical mass to really, to really disrupt the system. And it really speaks to the level of careerism in the national security state, the lack of conscience of people who really know what's going on, who are seeing how targeting is taking place, who are now directly involved in preparations for another attack on Iran. I mean, Alexander Haig, former Secretary of State, said, "Israel is our unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Middle East." And now look what we're doing. We're sending B-52s. We're sending sinkable aircraft carriers because they can't defend themselves. And as we've seen through this new report at the Watson School at Brown University, $23 billion has been sent by the Biden administration of munitions and weapons through the modern equivalent of the rail lines to Auschwitz on a continuous air bridge to Israel, to the Nevatim Air Base, to conduct the Holocaust of our times. And so those of you who did resign, who did give up, not just careers in government, but all of everything that comes with it when you go into the private sector, that bought Tony Blinken that fantastic $40 million mansion he lives in on Chainbridge Road. And then those of you who weren't in government, but who were out there at Kibbutz Blinken, who were outside the Israeli embassy, you will be able to say that when the Holocaust happened, you actually did something. As Aaron Bushnell said, what you would have done during slavery, during the Trail of Tears, during the Holocaust, that's what you're doing now. So again, thank you all for being here. Thank you to the Eisenhower Group, to Colonel Ann, Code Pink, who's constantly being a disruptive force. This goes well beyond the election. There's all this concern that people will stay on the couch. They keep saying to Kamala in press conferences, "Do you think Arab Americans and Muslim Americans and people who are upset about this, what's happening in the Middle East," they never say what's happening, "will stay on the couch on election day?" But that's not what they're doing. They're not staying on the couch. They're voting with their feet. And people are doing what we've been doing every day since this genocide began, which is real democracy, not the fake democracy where you just get up every 4 years and vote for one of the two corporate pro-war, pro-apartheid, pro-genocide parties. This is democracy in action. So again, I'm so proud to be brought up here and stand before you all. And as Aaron Bushnell said,
what you would do during the worst atrocities of our time is what you're doing now, and you are doing it. Thank you.
With a poem and then a call to action, and I want to give Medea Benjamin a little heads up. We need you to do the call of action after this poem. Okay, come on up, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Anne. We're running into our reception time, so I'll make this quick, but I needed to read you this poem by Dan Berrigan. Thank you for mentioning him, Kathy Boylan, a famous Catholic worker. This poem was sent to me late last night by Ray McGovern, who couldn't be here. He's one of the founders of our organization, our Sam Adams. So in his honor, and in Dan Berrigan's own honor, and in Aaron Bushnell's honor, I will read this poem by Dan Berrigan called Some. Some stood up once and then sat down. Some walked a mile and then walked away. Some stood up twice, then sat down. I've had it, they said. Some walked 2 miles, then walked away. It's too much, they cried. Some stood and stood and stood. They were taken for fools. They were taken for being taken in. Some walked and walked and walked. They walked the earth. They walked the waters. They walked the air. Why do you stand, they were asked, and why do you walk? Because of the children, they said, because of the heart, and because of the bread, because the cause is the heart's beat, and the children born, and the risen bread.
And his brother spent many, many years in jail challenging all these governments. So for a call to action to get us up and going and moving again, Medea Benjamin, co-founder of Code Pink, Women for Peace.
Well, this was a really beautiful evening, and I am so grateful to all of you who came from outside the DC area to pay your respects and honor the sacrifice of Aaron Bushnell. But I also know that we have a lot of people here that are in the DC area. Raise your hand if you're from around here. Okay, so most of you. So there's a lot going on. There are 2 actions tomorrow. One is at the National Mall from 11:30 on. Another is at the DNC headquarters that is happening tomorrow afternoon. They are all in a WhatsApp group called DC Actions. If you're not in that WhatsApp group and want to be part of it, come to see me afterwards. And we are every day in the halls of Congress. So raise your hand if you've joined us in the halls of Congress. Joy, I see you. Hi. A lot of people here. Let's give a round of applause. Thank you for them. Because it is not a fun thing to do. It is actually a very tough thing to do. And you just see how heartless and how sold off and how absolutely inhumane so many of the people who are supposed to represent us are. But they are what we have, and we have to be on their backs. And they are coming back from a recess when they were campaigning. They're coming back on November 12th. And so the 2 weeks, November 12th and the following week, are going to be absolutely key. We hope it's going to be the first time ever, thanks to Bernie Sanders in the Senate, there will actually be a vote on restricting weapons to Israel. And what is going to be critical there is how many senators are going to be part of it. Right now we only have 4 senators. You don't have Chris Van Hollen on there, you don't have Elizabeth Warren on there, I mean all of these, quote, liberal senators. So they've got to hear a lot more from us, and we're going to need you. For example, on November 13th, we need about 50 to 80 people. We're going to do a silent march through Congress with pictures of people who have died in the last year. And we're going to be up and down the halls and the cafeterias and all over the place and going into some of the offices. It will be, we hope, a non-arrestable action, so come and join us. The following day will be a big lobby day for people coming all over the country. And so we really need your help, especially the days after Armistice Day, right? We don't call it Veterans Day. Yes, we call it Armistice Day. We're going to need your help. So if you're not signed up to the WhatsApp group, please do. And thank you so much for all of the work that so many of you in this room have been doing in the past year. I think that no matter, we know from, and thank you very much for reiterating, no matter who is in the White House, it's going to be up to us to be stronger, to be more unified, to be bolder, to be more effective, to make our demands not only heard, but to make them take action. No more weapons to Israel.
Can I ask you, Medea, something? If you wouldn't mind. I know there's a lot going on, and all the different Congress people and senators and all this. Is there a targeted effort at a specific senator or congressman or someone? I know you mentioned Elizabeth Warren, Chris Van Hollen, for instance. What is the strategy as opposed to just everything? Because I think sometimes we need to focus on one win, so that we can all kind of make it happen.
Well, the strategy is there's about 8 senators who are the closest, the lowest hanging fruit that we should get. And because in DC the closest one is the senator from Maryland, Chris Van Hollen, he is our #1 target. He has been to the border of Rafah. He has seen the trucks lined up not being able to get in. He has had his constituents hounding him because there's very well organized groups in Maryland, and yet he hasn't moved. And so he is very important. Tim Kaine, for anybody in Virginia, very important because he has made noise about how he thinks that there should be conditions on weapons sent to Israel, and that he's thinking about joining. It's called a joint resolution of disapproval. He's thinking about joining it, but he hasn't done it. So those would be 2, one Virginia, one in Maryland, and I would say the last one being Elizabeth Warren, because she has a constituency in Massachusetts that has been on her back, confronting her. You might have seen they even went to her door on Halloween, and they have been really, really pushing her, and she has not done anything yet to show that she's going to sign on to that. Our goal is to get, our goal is to get them all and to get it passed and no more weapons, of course. Yeah. But to be realistic, given what we have in this country, if we could get 20 senators to sign on to that, that would be a huge statement. But right now, we have 4.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to say that Aaron was a constituent of Warren.
And Aaron was a constituent of Senator Warren, so that's a good one. We have some friends who have brought some literature that has at least a chapter on Aaron in one of the books. Would you like to mention this? That will be available for you to take home.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Nick Barrett, I'm a member of the Socialist Equality Party. I think this was a very moving discussion. And Aaron's moral dedication and his courage and bravery should be honored. And we do honor this. I want to speak briefly on the question of the political perspective. Right, being quick as I can. We have literature for sale over here, the Socialist Equality Party. I want to draw attention to the Logic of Zionism, from nationalist myth to the Gaza genocide. It deals with the history of this conflict, the history of Zionism, ultimately undermining the justifications which are being deployed to intimidate opposition to the genocide. The final chapter of this book is dedicated to Aaron Bushnell. It's entitled The Gaza Genocide and the Death of Aaron Bushnell, The Political Lessons. I want to just cite very briefly a section of this. It's a quote from the founder of our movement, Leon Trotsky. He was speaking in 1938 to a situation which has certain similarities. There are differences in specific things that are different, but he was writing in the response to a young Jewish immigrant in France who assassinated a Nazi official who the day after the Crystal Night massacres occurred. Trotsky stated that changing what needs to be changed, obviously, in the moral sense, though not for his mode of action. The person's name was Herschel Greenspan, may serve as an example for every young revolutionist. Our open moral solidarity with him gives us an added right to say to all the other would-be Greenspans, to all those capable of self-sacrifice in the struggle against despotism and bestiality, seek another road. Not the lone avenger, but a great revolutionary mass movement can free the oppressed. A movement that will leave no remnant of the entire structure of the class exploitation, national oppression, and racial persecution. The unprecedented crimes of fascism create a yearning for vengeance that is wholly justifiable, but so monstrous is the scope of their crimes that this yearning cannot be satisfied by the assassination of isolated fascist bureaucrats. But that it is necessary to set in motion millions, tens of hundreds of millions of the oppressed throughout the world and lead them in the assault upon the strongholds of the old society. I will conclude. Thank you.
Thank you very much. They were kind enough to bring materials. No endorsement of anything, but they were kind enough to bring materials. Now, what we have, we thank you all so much for being here in this very, very moving presentation of Aaron Bushnell's sacrifice for the people of Palestine. We ask that you join us with a small reception that we have here. And again, we thank you on behalf of Veterans and Intelligence Professionals for Sanity, for the Sam Adams Integrity Group, and for Eisenhower Media Network. Thank you.